Okay, hi again. We are now on lesson 52. Lesson 52 deals with fractions and symbols of inclusion. If you remember from our lessons on order of operations, symbols of inclusion are these things over here on the right. Parentheses, brackets, parentheses, braces, and brackets. Those are the actual names for each of those. And if you recall when we talked about order of operations, when you have a long equation, you have to do certain operations before others. And so the order that is standard or accepted is that first you would need to work out everything in these symbols of inclusion. So you have to simplify everything in the parentheses, braces, and brackets. Then you would simplify your exponents and your radicals, your square roots and cube roots and things like that. And then you would do all of your multiplication and division from left to right, and then you would do your addition and subtraction from left to right. So that's a little review on order of operations. So we recall that the braces and brackets and parentheses are the first priority when we do equations. Okay. Now this lesson deals with fractions and symbols of inclusion, and the reason why they treat fractions on its own with regard to symbols of inclusion is because, let me write out an equation for you. I'll write out something like what they're going to give you in the practice set. 1/3 plus 2/4 plus, sorry, my parentheses aren't big enough for my fractions. Let me make that bigger. I also told you guys, be watching for when I make verbal mistakes in my video lessons. Sometimes when I talk too fast, I'll say something and not even recognize it till I watch my video a second time. So anybody that catches a mistake in any of my videos, write it down, and when you come to class on the second, give me your list. I'll look at it and you get a prize for every mistake you caught me in. So it pays to pay attention. I made a couple in the last video, lesson 51. Let's see if you can figure out what it was. Okay, the reason why it's important to consider fractions and symbols of inclusion is because, for example, we know when we add fractions and subtract fractions, we need to find a common denominator. In this particular equation, we have 5 fractions. 2, 3, 4. We have 4 different denominators here. I would not sweep through and find a common denominator for all these fractions. I don't need to. I only need to find, at least at first, a common denominator for those two and a common denominator for those two separately, because I have to work what's in parentheses first. So I have to add 1/3 and 2/4. And so if I convert that to a common denominator, my least common multiple of 3 and 4 is 12. So 1/3 converted to a fraction with a denominator of 12, that's 4/12. And 2/4 is the same as a half. So we can see that's going to be 6/12. I'm going to put my parentheses back. I'm going to go ahead and just find the common denominator here. The common denominator of 6 and 3 is 6, which is nice because we don't have to change the fraction 5/6. 2/3 becomes 4/6. I multiplied 3 by 2 to get to 6, so I have to multiply my numerator 2 by 2 as well. So I end up with 4/6. I'm going to put my brackets back on and my 1/2. 1/2 is ultimately going to be multiplied. I don't need a common denominator for multiplication, so I won't have to do anything with 1/2. I will just multiply it by the final answer in my brackets here. Okay, this should be pretty simple going forward now. I've got my common denominators. So in my first set of parentheses, 4/12 plus 6/12 is 10/12. We add the numerator. We do not add the denominator. Don't add denominators when you add fractions. And then in my second set of parentheses, I have 5/6 minus 4/6, and that's 1/6. I'm going to put my brackets back on. Okay, now we have to find a common denominator for 10/12 and 1/6. And that's going to be 12. So I'm going to come over here and put my 1/2 back up there. Okay, so 10/12, we're going to leave that alone. We don't have to change that. I am going to change 1/6 to 2/12. All right, I multiplied 6 by 2 to get to 12, so I have to multiply 1 by 2 as well. Okay, last step, actually second to last step, 10 twelfths plus 2 twelfths. Oh, how about that? I actually didn't work this first. I just made it up. It comes out to 12 twelfths, and we all know what that is. So this is actually going to be 1/2 times the number 1, and that's just going to be 1/2. So make sure when you see your practice problems, you realize you only find a common denominator for the fractions that need it, the ones in parentheses that are added together or subtracted. All right, and then you may end up with a new addition problem, as I did here, or a new addition step, I should say, within the problem. Then you might again have to find a common denominator. And remember that we do not find common denominators when we multiply. So here I did not have to find any common denominator. So the reason for taking a look at fractions as they relate to symbols of inclusion is just to make sure you understand this. These problems take a few minutes because there's several steps, like always. So don't get in a hurry, don't give up, and don't get discouraged. You know how to do these, okay? You find your common denominator within your parentheses, you do your addition and your subtraction. Don't get confused. Make sure in each step you keep your parentheses and brackets there until you truly don't need them anymore. It keeps things organized and helps you to avoid mistakes. So, okay, I hope that made sense. I'm trying to talk a little faster so these videos don't run on too long. All right, signing off, class.